Hello friends, a very warm good morning to all of you. Welcome to Vijay Mohan IAS Academy. This is Vijay Mohan. Hope everyone is doing well. As you know that we are in APPSC Group 2 Paper 2 Mains Economy video course, and we are dealing with the first chapter of the Indian economy, right? So in the previous video, we had a discussion about we can say that we started the concept of measurement of national income. What are the methods of measuring the national income? And I told you about the basic definitions related to stock and flow. What is the meaning of stock and flow? And I also told you about the circular flow of income. What is the circular flow of income? Sorry, just so what do you mean by circular flow of income? And I explained you about the three types of circular flow of income models, that is two-stage, or you can say uh, circular flow of income, which is having only two elements, that is households and firms, then three elements and four elements, right? So, and after that, we had a discussion about the first method of calculating national income, that is product method or value added method. And we had a discussion about the basic formula and how what are the steps involving the calculation of national income in this method, right? So in this video, if you have not already seen the previous videos, just go through the previous videos. Why? Because you can maintain the continuity with respect to the topic that we are going to discuss. So ఈ వీడియోలో ఏంటంటే బేసిక్ గా రిమైనింగ్ టూ మెథడ్స్ మనం చూస్తాము. క్యాలిక్యులేషన్ ఆఫ్ నేషనల్ ఇన్కమ్ సంబంధించి ఇన్కమ్ మెథడ్ ఒకటి and then expenditure method. These two methods we will see in this class, and if possible we will also discuss some of the practice questions related to the discussion we will be having, right? So basically this is the second method, income method, and third method is expenditure method. But before going further about these two methods, I just wanted to remind you about the circular flow of income, where only two entities are involved. One, this is households, and this is firms, right? And from households to firms, the factors of production will move, and from here, and from firms to households, the reward for factors of production like wages kanivandi, rent kanivandi, profit kanivandi, it will go, right? And from households to firms, expenditure will flow, and firms to households, goods and services will flow, right? See, why I am telling this thing now, why I'm reminding this thing now, is that you need to understand what is the income method and what is the expenditure method, where at which point they are calculated, right? So I'll tell you, I already told you while dealing about I think in the first class, just brush up your basics. I'm just reminding here. So the households, if you see here they are getting the rewards for whatever factors of production the households are providing to factors of production. If you calculate, then it will become the income. So these rewards from the firms to households, it will become income to the households. If you calculate the national income at this particular point of time, then you can say that it can be called as income method, right? So ఈ income method లో ఏంటంటే ఈ rewards households వస్తున్నాయి కదా factors of production కి, ఈ particular point దగ్గర if you calculate all the incomes that the households are getting, then you will get the national income. And in income method, this is what particularly happening. And if you calculate the income, or if you calculate the expenditure at this particular point of time, అంటే వీళ్ళకి వచ్చిన ఇన్కమ్ ని వీళ్ళు గూడ్స్ అండ్ సర్వీసెస్ పర్చేస్ చేయడానికి ఇక్కడ యూజ్ చేస్తున్నారు. సో ఈ పాయింట్ ఆఫ్ ఇంటరాక్షన్ లో మీరు expenditure, if you calculate all the expenditures from the firms, then you will get national income, and which is called as expenditure method. So expenditure method లో ఈ పాయింట్ దగ్గర పర్టికులర్ ఎక్స్పెండిచర్స్ అన్ని హౌస్ హోల్డ్ నుంచి ఎలా జరుగుతున్నాయని క్యాలిక్యులేట్ చేసి యూ విల్ గెట్ నేషనల్ ఇన్కమ్. సో దిస్ ఈస్ ది సింపుల్ ఎకనామిక్ మోడల్. ఈ సింపుల్ ఎకనామిక్ మోడల్లో ఇక్కడ ఇన్కమ్ అండ్ ఇక్కడ ఎక్స్పెండిచర్ ఇలా ఇన్కమ్ మెథడ్ లో క్యాలిక్యులేట్ చేయొచ్చు, ఇలా ఎక్స్పెండిచర్ మెథడ్ లో యు ఆర్ క్యాలిక్యులేటింగ్ ఎట్ దిస్ పర్టికులర్ పాయింట్. దిస్ ఇస్ ద బేసిక్ ఐడియా దట్ ఐ వాంట్ టు గివ్ యూ ఫ్రమ్ ది two stage, or you can say two economic activities, two entities, circular flow of income, right? So first we will see income method. It is also known as factor payment method, distributed share method, income paid method, or income received method, right? It is a fundamental approach to calculate the national income based on the rewards obtained by factors of production, that is land, labor, capital, entrepreneurship, for the services in the production process. So I already told you that this is nothing but the rewards. If you aggregate all the rewards that the economic entities are getting, then you will get the national income, and it is a fundamental approach to calculate the national income, right? When these rewards are aggregated and combined, the national income is obtained. So you have to aggregate అంటే factors of production ద్వారా వచ్చే ఇన్కమ్ అంతా కలిపేస్తే మీకు నేషనల్ ఇన్కమ్ వస్తుంది. Then national income is equals to, what are the rewards for factors of production? Wages, right? Interest, rent, profits, plus mixed income. Here the mixed income represents that for instance, the person who is the owner of the shop might be providing the working services himself. So here he is getting wages, means he is providing labor, and at the same time he is providing capital, being a owner. So atanu, he is providing labor in his establishment, and at the same time he is also providing capital. For example, a doctor, అంటే ఒక డాక్టర్ ఉన్నాడు అనుకోండి, he is having a clinic. So ఇక్కడ ఏంటంటే he is having the capital, at the same time he will work in his same clinic. So ikkada he is getting mixed income simultaneously. So that is what here it represents, the income which the individual is getting from contributing labor and from contributing capital also will come under the category of mixed income, right? So in this way, this is the basic formula. This is the basic formula for calculating national income in income method, right? Now we'll see what are the steps involved in calculating national income in this method. Steps ఏమున్నాయి? First you need to identify what are the factor services. Factor services ఏమున్నాయి ఎకానమీలో అనేది ఐడెంటిఫై చేయాలి. అంటే ల్యాండ్ కానీ, లేబర్ కానీ, ఎంటర్ప్రెన్యూర్షిప్ కానీ. So you need to first identify the factor services. Determine the sectors of production where the factor services are utilized. Okay, for example, in agriculture, electricity, transportation, etc. So a sector lo factors of production, a type of factors of production involved in first you need to determine. Then determine factor incomes. After that you need to determine what are the factor incomes that are accruing to those services. So calculate the incomes which are earned by each factor of production. Each factor of production ki income em ostundani calculate cheyali. Then for instance, the labor factor earns wages, capital earns interest, land earns rent, and entrepreneurship earns profit. This is all we already told you about all these basics, right? Next, after determining the factor income, calculate the domestic factor income. Here I am using the word domestic. Domestic and enduku arthamante. First we are concerned about the rewards for factors of income, rewards for factors of production in the domestic economy, right? So consider the domestic factor income. Combine the incomes which are earned by labor and capital to obtain the domestic factor income. So ఇవన్నీ అగ్రిగేట్ చేస్తే మనకి ఒక డొమెస్టిక్ ఫ్యాక్టర్ ఇన్కమ్ వస్తుంది. నెక్స్ట్ యూ హ్యావ్ టు యాడ్ net factor income from abroad to domestic factor income. So ఈ domestic factor income ki net factor income from abroad ఏదైతే వస్తుందో అంటే this represents the income which is earned by domestic factors of production from their involvement in economic activities outside the country minus the income earned by foreign factors of production within the country. అంటే domestic factors of production ఏవైనా ఫారిన్ లో ప్రొడక్షన్ కి అంటే అబ్రాడ్ లో ఆర్ అవుట్ ఆఫ్ ద కంట్రీ, if they are contributing for any economic activity, you need to have that income, you need to calculate that income, and you need to remove the income earned by foreign factors of production. అంటే ఫారిన్ నుంచి ఏదైనా క్యాపిటల్ వచ్చి ఇక్కడ ప్రొడక్షన్ ప్రాసెస్ కి ఏదైనా హెల్ప్ చేస్తుంటే దాని నుంచి జనరేట్ అయిన ఇన్కమ్ ని ఫస్ట్ కాంపోనెంట్ నుంచి రిమూవ్ చేయాలి. సో This represents, I'll read you once again, I'll read the same thing once again. This represents the income which is earned by domestic factors of production from their involvement in economic activities outside the country minus the income which is earned by foreign factors of production within the country. ఈ రెండింటిని రిమూవ్ చేసుకుంటే ఈ రెండింటి aggregate you will get the factor income from abroad, right? Net factor income from abroad. If you calculate, if you include domestic factor income and net factor income from abroad, you will get the national income, right? So sorry, yeah. Now, what are the components of domestic factor income? So, first, domestic factor income loan components in the just try to concentrate in this diagram. With this diagram, I think you will be getting the whole idea of what are the components of domestic factor income as far as income method is concerned. Don't get confused. In this picture, you'll be, if you see this picture, you will be able to understand what are the components of the domestic factor income. Then we will see one by one. So first, I'll try to explain entire the components of income method or domestic factor income with this diagram. Then it will be easy for you to understand, right? So first of all, components of domestic factor income, right? NDP at factor cost. There are basically three components. One is compensation of employees. Another one is operating surplus, and another one is mixed income of self-employed. Now, how you arrived at this compensation of employees and operating surplus and mixed income or self-employed? See, basically the rewards of factors of production in an economy can be basically divided into two items or two categories. One is related to labor income, and another one is related to capital income, or you can say property income. And if there is a combination of these two, if a person is getting income from combination of these two aspects, అంటే మనం ఇంతగా పైన చెప్పుకున్నట్లు ఒక ఇండివిజువల్ ఈ రెండింటి కాంట్రిబ్యూషన్ ద్వారా ఇన్కమ్ పొందుతున్నాడు అనుకోండి, అప్పుడు then it will be considered as mixed income, right? So basically, rewards for factors of production in an economy can be divided into two things. If you combine these two also, you will get one more thing. So basically, three types of rewards of income. And this labor income is termed as compensation of employees, COE. So this is nothing but compensation of employees. And what is this? Capital or property income, the income which the individual is getting from capital or property, is called operating surplus, OS, right? And this, you know that if there is a combination of these two, you will term it as mixed income. So basically, these are the components of domestic factor income, right? And what are the components of compensation of employees? Employees will get compensation in terms of wages ravachu, salaries ravachu, and that might be in cash or that might be in kind. This is one component. And another component is employers contribution to social security schemes, అంటే PFs కానీ provident funds కానీ లేకపోతే pension plans కానీ లేకపోతే insurance కానీ. So this is also one of the component of compensation of employees, right? Next component, operating surplus, అంటే ప్రాపర్టీ ఇన్కమ్ నుంచి కానీ ప్రాపర్టీ నుంచి వచ్చే ఇన్కమ్ కానీ ఆర్ క్యాపిటల్ నుంచి వచ్చే ఇన్కమ్ కానీ. సో ఇందులో మరి 4 పార్ట్స్ ఉంటాయి: రెంట్, ఇంట్రెస్ట్, రాయల్టీ, ప్రాఫిట్. ఇక్కడ రాయల్టీ ప్రాఫిట్ వచ్చేసి ఎంటర్ప్రెన్యూర్ కి వచ్చే ఇన్కమ్, రెంట్ వచ్చేసి ల్యాండ్ కి వచ్చే ఇన్కమ్, ఇంట్రెస్ట్ వచ్చేసి మనకి క్యాపిటల్ కి వచ్చే ఇన్కమ్. సో ఈ 4 టైప్స్ ఆఫ్ ఇన్కమ్స్ ని మనం విల్ కన్సిడర్ ఇట్ యాస్ ఆపరేటింగ్ సర్ప్లస్. అండ్ ఇక్కడ ప్రాఫిట్ లో the capital, corporate tax, dividend, and undistributed profit is also included, right? And third component of domestic factor income, mixed income or of self-employed person, which is a combination of these two things, right? Okay. So this is basically all about the components of domestic factor income in the income method. దీనికి మళ్ళీ మనం net factor income from abroad include చేస్తే then you will get the national income, right? So మనం ఇప్పుడు ఏంటంటే we already saw what are the components. We will just briefly see what are the in detail what are the components, right? In the computation of national income, the concept of domestic factor income involves categorizing the factors of production into labor and capital, right? Which I already told you, which can sometimes overlap, resulting in three distinct types of incomes. One is labor income, that is compensation of employees, and property income, that is operating surplus, and mixed income, right? Put one by one, Chuddam. Yeah. Compensation of employees. So workers and employees receive compensation through various means, including wages, salaries, and benefits. So wages రూపంలో, salaries రూపంలో, and benefits రూపంలో workers receive their compensation. These benefits encompass both monetary benefits ఉంటాయి, ఇక్కడ నాన్ మానిటరీ ఎలిమెంట్స్ ఉంటాయి, such as హౌసింగ్ కానీ. నాన్ మానిటరీ ఎలిమెంట్స్ ఏమి ఉండొచ్చు? హౌసింగ్ ఉండొచ్చు, మెడికల్ కేర్ ఉండొచ్చు, ఎడ్యుకేషన్ అలవెన్స్ ఉండొచ్చు, సోషల్ సెక్యూరిటీ కాంట్రిబ్యూషన్స్ ఉండొచ్చు. ఇవన్నీ కాంపెన్సేషన్ ఆఫ్ ఎంప్లాయీస్ ఇన్ కైండ్, రైట్? This category also account for employer contributions to schemes like provident funds ఉండొచ్చు, pension plans ఉండొచ్చు, and insurance. Okay, so sorry, first component is in first component monetary contributions కూడా include అయి ఉన్నాయి. మెడికల్ కేర్ అలవెన్స్ కానీ, ఎడ్యుకేషన్ అలవెన్స్ కానీ ఇవన్నీ monetary, and the remaining housing and social security, housing is non-monetary related contribution, and provident funds, pension plans, and insurance is also a type of monetary contributions, right? Sorry. Next, operating surplus to them. So income which is derived from ownership of capital assets. So ownership of capital assets, and for example, land kanivandi, buildings kanivandi, financial instruments kanivandi. If an individual receiving income from this, then you can say that this is operating surplus. And this category encompasses earnings from rent, including imputed rent for self-occupied housing, interest, and royalties. I already told you what is the meaning of imputed rent and imputed interest, right? It also covers dividends which are distributed by companies to shareholders as a share of profit. So it also includes profits also, okay? And now you say mixed income. It refers to the earnings earned by an individual who simultaneously contributes both labor and capital to the production process. So if an individual, labor key and capital key, if he is simultaneously contributing and if he is getting income from both, then you can term it as mixed income. It reflects the case where a person engages in activities that generate both wages and earnings from the capital ownership. Okay, wages వస్తాయి, capital ownership నుంచి earnings వస్తాయి. Example, owning a personal business, a doctor services in their private clinic, or a farmer working on their own land. ఇవి examples, mixed income, right? Now, what are the precautions in this method that you have to take? అంటే inclusions ఏమి ఉండాలి and exclusions ఏమి ఉండాలి అనేది చూద్దాం ఒకసారి. Imputed value of rent for self-occupied houses or offices is to be included. This I already told you while explaining in the product method or value added method. So imputed value of rent, imputed interest you need to add while calculating the national income. Imputed value of services provided by owners of production units, family labor is to be included. So imputed value of services, if there is any family labor involving, item kuda, then you have to consider while calculating or include while calculating national income in the income, right? Now, what are the exclusions? This is important. Yeah, mostly it will be similar to the exclusions in the production method or value added method. Transfer payments మనం exclude చేయాలి. See, transfer payments such as pension, social insurance, etc. are not to be included in the estimation of national income. So transfer payments మనం include చేయకూడదు, ఎందుకంటే they are not given for any production purposes. అంటే వాటి ద్వారా ఏదైనా new goods or services ఎకానమీలో ప్రొడక్షన్ జరగలేదు. They are simply supporting like subsidies or scholarships given by the government to support some sectors or some you can say the people of different categories anamata, right? So transfer payments మనం include చేయకూడదు. Next, the receipts from the sale of second hand goods. So the receipts from the sale of second hand goods should be excluded. So sale of second hand goods receipts kuda మనం include చేయకూడదు. As they do not create new flow of goods and services in the country that in the current year. So current year the sale of second hand goods or services has not produced any particular goods or services. అంటే మనకి ఈ ఇయర్ లో పర్టికులర్ గూడ్స్ ఆఫ్ సర్వీసెస్ మనకి ఈ సెకండ్ హ్యాండ్ గూడ్స్ సేల్స్ వల్ల లేదంటే పర్చేస్ వల్ల there is no addition of any new products or services. That's why you should not include the sale of second hand goods. This I already explained in the first method also, right? And windfall gains. Sorry. And windfall gains such as lotteries are also to be excluded as they do not represent receipts from any current productive activity. So ఈ windfall gains అంటే లాటరీ నుంచి వచ్చినవి కానీ లాటరీ నుంచి వచ్చిన ఇన్కమ్ కానీ రైట్, ఇలాంటివి మనం యాడ్ చేయకూడదు. యూ నీడ్ టు ఎక్స్క్లూడ్, రైట్? కార్పొరేట్ ప్రాఫిట్ ట్యాక్స్, it should not be separately included as it has been already included as part of company profit. So ఈ కార్పొరేట్ ప్రాఫిట్ ట్యాక్స్ అనేది corporate tax అనేది it is already included while calculating the company profit under operating surplus. సో మళ్ళీ ఇంక్లూడ్ చేయడం వల్ల ఏమవుతుంది, డబుల్ అకౌంటింగ్ అవుతుంది. సో ఈ కార్పొరేట్ ప్రాఫిట్ ట్యాక్స్ కూడా మళ్ళీ కాన్షియస్ గా ఇంక్లూడ్ చేయాల్సిన అవసరం లేదు. ఇట్ ఈస్ ఆల్రెడీ ఇంక్లూడెడ్ ఇన్ ద ప్రాఫిట్స్ calculated in the operation surplus component. ఆ కాంపోనెంట్ లో ఇది ఆల్రెడీ ఇంక్లూడ్ అయి ఉంటుంది. సో మళ్ళీ డబుల్ అకౌంటింగ్ చేయాల్సిన అవసరం ఉండదు, రైట్? దెన్ illicit earnings like those from smuggling and illegal drug trading etc. should be excluded. Then interest on national debt, this is also important. Interest on national debt is typically not included, especially if borrowed for non-productive purposes. Generally the interest on debt does not produce any new goods or services in an economy. So okay, economy lo interest on national debt అనేది it doesn't generate any new goods and services. Andukani while calculating income you should not include this component into the national income, right? And especially if it is the debt is or the interest on debt is using for non-productive purposes, then obviously you should not include it in the calculation of national income. So these are the precautions you need to take while calculating the national income under income method, right? Now we will see the next method, the expenditure method or outlay method. So it is also known as the income disposal method or consumption and investment method. దీన్ని income disposal method గాని consumption and investment method గాని అంటారు. It is a way to calculate the gross domestic product GDP by assessing the total final expenditure in the economy. So total I already told you while with the diagram of circular flow of income that ఇదేంటంటే టోటల్ ఎక్స్పెండిచర్ ఎంత జరుగుతుంది ఎకానమీలో అని అగ్రిగేట్ చేయడం ద్వారా వీఆర్ క్యాలిక్యులేటింగ్ ది గ్రాస్ డొమెస్టిక్ ప్రొడక్ట్. ఓకే, ఫైనల్ గూడ్స్ ఇంక్లూడ్ దోస్ ఇంటెండెడ్ ఫర్ కన్సంప్షన్ అండ్ నాన్ ఇన్వెస్ట్మెంట్ పర్పసెస్. ఫైనల్ గూడ్స్ ఆర్ those which are intended for consumption purposes and non-investment purposes. GDP through this method is obtained by combining the final consumption expenditure and final investment expenditure. So consumption expenditure ఉంటుంది and investment expenditure ఉంటుంది. అండ్ కన్సంప్షన్ ఎక్స్పెండిచర్ ఎక్కడి నుంచి ఉంటుంది, హౌస్ హోల్డ్స్ నుంచి ఉంటుంది, గవర్నమెంట్ నుంచి ఉంటుంది. అదేవిధంగా ఇన్వెస్ట్మెంట్ ఎక్స్పెండిచర్ ఎక్కడి నుంచి ఉంటుంది, హౌస్ హోల్డ్ నుంచి ఉంటుంది, అట్ ద సేమ్ టైం గవర్నమెంట్ నుంచి ఉంటుంది, రైట్? నో వాట్ ఆర్ ద స్టెప్స్ ఇన్వాల్వ్డ్? What are the so basically what are the steps involved? You need to first identify the expenditure sectors. So expenditure ఏ sectors నుంచి జరుగుతుందని first you need to identify those sectors. The first step entails identifying the various sectors in which the expenditure on final products occurs within a country's territory. First ఏ sectors నుంచి మనకి expenditure జరుగుతుందనేది మనం first identify చేయాలి. And you know what are the constituent or economic agents in an economy? Household sector నుంచి expenditure ఎంత జరుగుతుంది, business నుంచి ఎంత జరుగుతుంది expenditure, government sector నుంచి expenditure ఎంత జరుగుతుంది, and rest of the world నుంచి expenditure ఎంత జరుగుతుంది అనేది you need to first identify. Then you need to categorize the expenditures. ఆ expenditure components ని you need to categorize into yeah. In the second step, you need to categorize the expenditures by these sectors on final goods and services. and they are categorized into actually కన్జంప్షన్ ఎక్స్పెండిచర్ అంటే కేటగరైజ్ చేయాలి. దేనికోసం జరుగుతుంది, కన్జంప్షన్ కోసం జరుగుతుందా, ఇన్వెస్ట్మెంట్ కోసం జరుగుతుందా అనేది మనం కేటగరైజ్ చేసుకోవాలి. సో it will be categorized as 4 items: consumption expenditure, investment expenditure you need to categorize, and government expenditure ఏ కాంపోనెంట్ లో జరుగుతుంది, and net exports. So these are the 4 categories. You need to categorize the expenditures, right? Consumption expenditure, investment expenditure, government expenditure, net exports. Now you need to calculate the final cost elements. So this means adding up all the expenditures from each category to arrive at the total value of final cost. ఇక్కడ నుంచి ఇక్కడ జరుగుతున్న ఎక్స్పెండిచర్ నుంచి అగ్రిగేట్ చేస్తే మనకి ఫైనల్ ఎక్స్పెండిచర్ ఎంత జరుగుతుందని తెలుస్తుంది. దట్ ఈస్ వాట్ హీ ఈస్ టెల్లింగ్, దట్ యు నీడ్ టు యాడ్ అప్ ఆల్ ద ఎక్స్పెండిచర్స్. నౌ ఇన్ దిస్ మెథడ్ GDP is calculated as the sum of consumption C plus investment I plus government spending G and net exports X minus M in an economy. So basically the formula is C plus I plus government spending G plus exports, net exports X minus M, and this is the formula that we have seen, we saw in the circular flow of income models. The circular flow of income models basically they are nothing but the expenditure method of calculating national income. ఈ formula ని మనం circular flow of income లో చూసాం అన్నమాట, right? So this is the steps that are involved in the calculation of national income in the expenditure. So what are the components of expenditure? ఏం components ఉన్నాయి? Already I told you, just give you brief components of gross domestic product at market prices. So consumption expenditure ఉంది ఒక component, investment expenditure ఉంది, and then net exports. మళ్ళీ consumption expenditure లో ప్రైవేట్ ఫైనల్ కన్జంప్షన్ ఎక్స్పెండిచర్. ప్రైవేట్ ఫైనల్ కన్జంప్షన్ ఎక్స్పెండిచర్ అంటే ది కన్జంప్షన్ ఎక్స్పెండిచర్ విచ్ ఈస్ డన్ బై ది హౌస్ హోల్డ్ సెక్టర్ అండ్ బిజినెస్. సో బిజినెస్ అండ్ హౌస్ హోల్డ్ సెక్టర్ చేసిన ఫైనల్ కన్జంప్షన్ ఎక్స్పెండిచర్ ని ప్రైవేట్ ఫైనల్ కన్జంప్షన్ ఎక్స్పెండిచర్ అంటారు. అండ్ గవర్నమెంట్ ఫైనల్ కన్జంప్షన్ ఎక్స్పెండిచర్, గవర్నమెంట్ చేస్తున్న ఎక్స్పెండిచర్ ని గవర్నమెంట్ ఫైనల్ కన్జంప్షన్ ఎక్స్పెండిచర్. అండ్ ఫైనల్ ఇన్వెస్ట్మెంట్ ఎక్స్పెండిచర్. ఇన్వెస్ట్మెంట్ ఎక్స్పెండిచర్ లో మళ్ళీ 2: గ్రాస్ ఫిక్స్డ్ క్యాపిటల్ ఫార్మేషన్ అండ్ చేంజ్ ఇన్ స్టాక్స్. ఈ గ్రాస్ ఫిక్స్డ్ క్యాపిటల్ ఫార్మేషన్ అంటే ఏంటంటే క్యాపిటల్ ఫార్మేషన్ కోసం ఎవరైనా స్పెండ్ చేసి ఉంటే దాన్ని వీ విల్ కేటగరైజ్ ఇంటూ యాజ్ గ్రాస్ ఫిక్స్డ్ క్యాపిటల్ ఫార్మేషన్. అండ్ క్యాపిటల్ ఫార్మేషన్ కోసం ఏ ఎకనామిక్ ఏజెంట్స్ ఖర్చు చేస్తాయంటే ఎకానమీలో అగైన్ సేమ్ రెసిడెన్షియల్ కన్స్ట్రక్షన్, బిజినెస్ ఫిక్స్డ్ ఇన్వెస్ట్మెంట్ డన్ బై ది బిజినెస్, అండ్ పబ్లిక్ ఫిక్స్డ్ ఇన్వెస్ట్మెంట్ డన్ బై ది పబ్లిక్ సెక్టర్ ఆర్ గవర్నమెంట్. ఈ 3 కాంపోనెంట్స్ అన్నమాట. దిస్ విల్ కమ్ అండర్ ఫైనల్ ఇన్వెస్ట్మెంట్ ఎక్స్పెండిచర్. And you know the net exports, change in stocks means change in the inventory, whatever the already capital investment ఉంటే అందులో చేంజ్ అయితే అది కూడా మనం ఇన్వెస్ట్మెంట్ ఎక్స్పెండిచర్ కింద కన్సిడర్ చేస్తాం అన్నమాట. దెన్ నెట్ ఎక్స్పోర్ట్స్, ది రెస్ట్ ఆఫ్ ద వరల్డ్ నుంచి మనకి వాట్ ఈస్ హ్యాపెనింగ్ ఇన్ టర్మ్స్ ఆఫ్ ఎక్స్పెండిచర్, వాట్ ఈస్ హ్యాపెనింగ్ ఇన్ టర్మ్స్ ఆఫ్ ఇన్వెస్ట్మెంట్, అగ్రిగేట్ అంతా తీసుకొని దెన్ యూ విల్ క్యాలిక్యులేట్ ద నెట్ ఆఫ్ export. So these are the components of you can say GDP in terms of while calculating the national income in expenditure method, right? So మనం ఇప్పుడు brief గా just we already seen it, brief గా చూద్దాం మనం ఈ components గురించి. The private final consumption expenditure, it encompasses expenditure by households and non-profit charitable organizations on consumer goods and services. So consumer goods and services మీద expenditure చేసేదే private final consumption expenditure. For example, spending on non-durable goods like food, beverages, soaps, and expenditure on durable goods like televisions, furniture, cars, bikes, etc., and spending on services like transport and medical services. Ivi private final consumption ki examples annamata. So these costs are computed based on the retail prices. Ivi ekkada calculate chestunnam, these costs are computed based on the retail prices prevailing in the market. Only expenditure on current production is considered and the spending on old cars and antiques is excluded. I already told you that second hand or the products which are produced way back in the years, not current year, way back in the old years also, you should exclude. So only expenditure on current production మీద జరిగిన expenditure ని మాత్రమే మనం కన్సిడర్ చేస్తాం. Self consumption retained by the producers is also part of the consumption expenditure as is imputed rent on self occupied houses. Same thing, imputed rent, imputed interest, అండ్ సెల్ఫ్ కన్సంప్షన్ పర్పస్ ఎవరైనా ప్రొడ్యూసర్స్ వాళ్ళ దగ్గర రిటైన్ చేసుకుంటే దాన్ని కూడా ఇంక్లూడ్ చేయాల్సిన అవసరం ఉంటుంది అనమాట, రైట్. అండ్ ఇన్వెస్ట్మెంట్, నెక్స్ట్ కాంపోనెంట్ ఇన్వెస్ట్మెంట్. It is nothing but it is an augmentation of physical capital goods such as machinery, factories, and residential houses, along with an increase in inventories. So investment ante nothing but augmentation of physical capital like machinery gaani, factories gaani, residential houses gaani. Residential houses investment done by households, machinery, factories, etc. done by the business people, right? And investment expenditure is got using gross domestic capital formation. So gross domestic capital formation నుంచి అంటే ఇన్వెస్ట్మెంట్ ఎక్స్పెండిచర్ ఎలా జరిగిందని చెప్పడానికి ఏంటంటే ఒక మేజర్ కాంపోనెంట్ మనం ఏం తీసుకుంటాం అంటే గ్రాస్ డొమెస్టిక్ క్యాపిటల్ ఫార్మేషన్. పైన మీకు ఈ డయాగ్రామ్ లో చెప్పాను. సో గ్రాస్ క్యాపిటల్ డొమెస్టిక్ ఫార్మేషన్ నుంచి మనం ఇన్వెస్ట్మెంట్ ఎక్స్పెండిచర్ ఎంత జరిగిందో చూస్తాం. ఈ గ్రాస్ డొమెస్టిక్ క్యాపిటల్ ఫార్మేషన్ లో మళ్ళీ సబ్ కాంపోనెంట్స్ ఏమున్నాయంటే ఫిక్స్డ్ ఇన్వెస్ట్మెంట్ ఆర్ మేజర్ ఫిక్స్డ్ క్యాపిటల్ ఫార్మేషన్, expenditure on residential houses, change in stock, right? So we will see briefly what is this fixed investment or major fixed capital formation. This pertains to expenditure on new plant machinery, equipment, factories, and transport equipment, including construction projects like dams and telephone lines. And basically business people or business sector ఏదైనా ఇన్వెస్ట్మెంట్ చేస్తుంటే దాన్ని మనం we are categorizing it under fixed investment or major fixed capital formation. Now if expenditure is done by residential or households and residential houses కోసం చేస్తే this encompasses the costs which are associated with constructing new houses along with major repairs and renovations. So ఏదైనా న్యూ హౌస్ కన్స్ట్రక్షన్స్ జరుగుతున్నా, మేజర్ రిపైర్స్ అండ్ రెనోవేషన్ జరుగుతున్నా, we categorize this expenditure as expenditure on residential houses. And third one is change in stock or inventories. So this represents the alteration in inventories comprising raw materials, semi-finished goods, and finished goods awaiting sale. So inventories lo evena changes unte that also will calculate in the gross domestic capital formation, right? Now the other component is government expenditure. Before that, net domestic investment can be derived by subtracting the depreciation from the gross investment, resulting in gross fixed business investment plus inventory investment. So basically he is telling that you will get the net domestic investment from gross domestic investment minus depreciation, which is a basic thing. We already discussed it many times, right? Next item is government expenditure. So it is again classified into two aspects. One is current expenditure, then another one is capital expenditure. Current expenditure on goods and services, that is final consumption expenditure of the government, and capital expenditure is nothing but government investment. So current expenditure ni expenditure component ga chupistunam, capital expenditure ni government investment ga chupistunam. These two comes under government expenditure and investment. So government final consumption expenditure encompasses administration, defense, law and order, maintenance, social welfare services such as education and health. So ఈ సర్వీసెస్ కి అన్నిటికీ జరిగే ఎక్స్పెండిచర్ ని గవర్నమెంట్ నుంచి మనం గవర్నమెంట్ ఎక్స్పెండిచర్ గా అగ్రిగేట్ చేస్తున్నాం. లాస్ట్ కాంపోనెంట్ నెట్ ఎక్స్పోర్ట్, ఎక్స్ మైనస్ ఎం. ఇట్ రిప్రజెంట్స్ ద డిఫరెన్స్ బిట్వీన్ ద వాల్యూ ఆఫ్ ఎక్స్పోర్ట్స్ అండ్ ఇంపోర్ట్స్ ఆఫ్ గూడ్స్ అండ్ సర్వీసెస్. నెట్ ఫారిన్ ఇన్వెస్ట్మెంట్ అంటే ఇక్కడ ఎక్స్పెండిచర్ ఫర్ ఎక్స్పోర్ట్స్ అండ్ ఇన్వెస్ట్మెంట్స్ ఎక్స్పెండిచర్ కాంపోనెంట్ అయిపోయింది. నెక్స్ట్ ఇన్వెస్ట్మెంట్ కాంపోనెంట్. Net foreign investment is determined by combining net exports and net foreign inward income. So foreign inward income, investment income ఏమొస్తుంది, అదే విధంగా ఇక్కడ నుంచి ఇన్వెస్ట్మెంట్ అవుట్కమ్ ఏం వెళ్తుంది. It is not net exports actually. This is net investment ఇక్కడ నుంచి ఎంత వెళ్తుంది అండ్ నెట్ ఇన్వెస్ట్మెంట్, నెట్ ఫారిన్ ఇన్వర్డ్ ఇన్కమ్ ఎంత వస్తుంది. సో ఈ రెండు కాంబినేషన్ నుంచి మనం నెట్ ఫారిన్ ఇన్వెస్ట్మెంట్ వస్తుంది అనమాట, రైట్? In summary, so basically final ga GDP is calculated as the sum of, as I already told you, consumption, investment, government spending, and net exports, right? So this is the basic formula in the expenditure method. Ikkada again precautions em teesukovali, inclusions em undali, exclusions em undali. Consideration of final goods consumption, only final goods that are intended for consumption should be included in the calculations regardless of whether the actual expenditure is incurred on them in the market. అంటే ఫైనల్ కన్సంప్షన్ కోసం ఏవైతే గూడ్స్ ఉన్నాయో ఆ గూడ్స్ ని మాత్రమే మనం లెక్కలోకి తీసుకోవాలన్నమాట. రైట్, ఇంటర్మీడియట్ కన్సంప్షన్ కి సంబంధించిన గూడ్స్ అనేది మనం లెక్కలోకి తీసుకోకూడదు. రైట్, సో కన్సిడరేషన్ ఆఫ్ ఫైనల్ గూడ్స్ కన్సంప్షన్ రిగార్డ్లెస్ వెదర్ ద యాక్చువల్ ఎక్స్పెండిచర్ ఇస్ ఇన్కర్డ్ ఆన్ దెమ్ in the market. So if there are goods for final consumption, you need to take it whether they are actually expenditure has been done on those goods or not in that particular area. That doesn't matter, right? So final goods, final consumption కోసం ఏవైతే goods ఉన్నాయో వాటిని మనం లెక్కలోకి తీసుకోవాలి. Right, now exclusion of intermediate goods, obviously I will already explain. Exclusion of second hand goods, this is also I already explained. Exclusion of financial assets, see this financial assets, this one also I told you already. So expenditure on financial assets like shares and bonds should not be counted. Shares and bonds ki sambandhinchina expenditure kuda manam you should not consider. Why? Because there is only a change of ownership as far as shares and bonds are concerned. These transactions involve the transfer of ownership and do not contribute to aggregation of any new assets. Any new assets create above anamata. A new assets create above. Exclusion of transfer payments. So transfer payments kuda manam exclude cheyalsi untundi. Such as pensions and unemployment benefits should not be included. Why? Because they are not contributing to any productive purposes in the current financial year. Right? Appropriate treatment of corporate taxes. I already told you in the previous method also. Gross income should be calculated by subtracting corporate taxes from the national income. So ఇన్కమ్, గ్రాస్ ఇన్కమ్ లో మనకి కార్పొరేట్ ట్యాక్సెస్ కూడా ఇంక్లూడ్ అయి ఉంటాయి. సో దాన్ని మళ్ళీ డబుల్ అకౌంటింగ్ చేయాల్సిన అవసరం లేదు. రైట్, సో యూ నీడ్ టు క్యాలిక్యులేట్ ద నేషనల్ ఇన్కమ్. If you want to calculate the national income at the factor cost, then you need to remove the taxes, indirect taxes from the market prices, national income at market prices. Right, so that is what he is telling here. So basically we have finished all the three. So మనం 3 methods finish చేస్తున్నాం. If you are having any doubt or any confusion, just go back and just once again see the class, then you will be able to understand it. See, after seeing the this is the most comprehensive I think the lecture on the, you can say, the method of calculation of national income. Once you saw all these three, then I think that you can answer any type of question that was given on the method of calculation of national income. And national income మీద I think this is the most comprehensive class. And ఒకసారి మీరు ఈ 3 methods circular flow of income చూసుకున్న తర్వాత I think you will be able to answer any question on the measurement of methods of calculation of national income. Right, so basically in a tabular format lo, so the calculation methods and their formula డిస్టిల్ చేస్తే మనకి 3 calculation methods లో ప్రొడక్షన్ మెథడ్ లో ఫార్ములా ఏంటంటే జీడిపి ఈజ్ ఈక్వల్స్ టు గ్రాస్ వాల్యూ అవుట్పుట్ మైనస్ ఇంటర్మీడియట్ ఇన్పుట్. సో ఈ ప్రొడక్షన్ మెథడ్ ఆర్ వాల్యూ యాడెడ్ మెథడ్ లో గ్రాస్ వాల్యూ అవుట్పుట్ నుంచి మనకి ఇంటర్మీడియట్ ఇన్పుట్స్ చేస్తే జీడిపి వస్తుంది. రైట్, ఇన్కమ్ మెథడ్ లో ఏంటి, జీడిపి ఈజ్ ఈక్వల్స్ టు కంపెన్సేషన్ ఆఫ్ ఎంప్లాయీస్ ఆపరేటింగ్ సర్ప్లస్ మిక్స్డ్ ఇన్కమ్ ప్లస్ డెప్రిషియేషన్ చేస్తే మనకి జీడిపి వస్తుంది. రైట్, ఎక్స్పెండిచర్ మెథడ్ లో ఏంటి, జీడిపి ఈజ్ ఈక్వల్ టు కన్సంప్షన్ ప్లస్ ఇన్వెస్ట్మెంట్ ప్లస్ గవర్నమెంట్ ఎక్స్పెండిచర్ ప్లస్ ఎక్స్పోర్ట్ మైనస్ input. This I just wanted to give you some idea about the formulas at a single place. Right, okay, now yeah, so what is the reconciliation, or so how the national income is arrived in the 3 methods. I just wanted you just briefly show you through the diagram. It is already discussed, but for your understanding purpose I am keeping here. Just take the value added method. Value of output minus intermediate consumption. Value of output is equals to sales plus change in stock. This I already discussed. From this what you will get, GDP at market prices. మనకి దీని నుంచి GDP at market prices వస్తుంది. Right, and ఈ GDP at market prices నుంచి if you remove depreciation, right, GDP at market prices, yeah, so if you remove depreciation sorry, yeah, from this GDP at market prices, if you remove depreciation, then you will get net domestic product at market prices. GDP at market prices నుంచి మనం depreciation తీసేస్తే net domestic market prices, net domestic product at market prices వస్తుంది. Right, దీని నుంచి if you remove net indirect taxes from this component, అంటే net indirect taxes NDP at market prices నుంచి net indirect taxes మనకి రిమూవ్ చేస్తే you will get NDP at factor cost. NDP at factor cost. And ఈ NDP at factor cost కి if you add net foreign income from abroad, you will get NNP at net national product at factor cost, which is nothing but the national income, right? So this is the value addition method. And same thing you can just see. Yeah. Just give me some time. Yeah. The second component is income method. Income method lo components emunnai? Compensation of employees, operating surplus, mixed income, right? And operating surplus here is rent plus interest plus profit, right? And you know that compensation of employees include wages, salaries, benefits. Okay, so from this if you calculate the aggregate, you will get net domestic product at market prices. ఇక్కడ నుంచి మనకి net domestic product at market prices వస్తాయి అన్నమాట. Yeah, sorry, net domestic product at factor cost వస్తుంది. ఎందుకంటే here we are calculating directly the factor incomes. ఇక్కడ మనం factor incomes డైరెక్ట్ గా క్యాలిక్యులేట్ చేస్తున్నాం. So we will get net domestic product at factor cost. And in net domestic product at factor cost ki manam if you include the if you include the net factor income from abroad, so for this net domestic product at factor cost ki manam net factor income from abroad include cheste we will get national income, that is net national product at factory cost, which is nothing but national income, right? Now we will see the third method. We will see the third method, yeah, which is nothing but expenditure method. Expenditure method components ఏముంటాయండి? private final consumption expenditure plus government final consumption expenditure plus gross domestic capital formation plus net exports. These are the components. If you aggregate all these things, you will get GDP at market prices. Direct గా మనకి GDP at market prices వస్తుంది. Again depreciation ని remove చేస్తే NDP at market prices వస్తుంది. Again net indirect taxes, if you remove net indirect taxes from the NDP at market prices, you will get NDP at factor cost. ఎందుకంటే factor cost లో మనకి taxes ఉండవు but subsidies include అయి ఉంటాయి, right? So this is NDP at factor cost. NDP at factor cost కి మళ్ళీ మనం net foreign income from abroad include చేస్తే ఏమొస్తుంది మనకి? NNP at factor cost. Net national product at factor cost వస్తుంది, which is nothing but national income. So ఈ 3 మెథడ్ నుంచి మీకు ఒకసారి కంపారిటివ్ పర్స్పెక్టివ్ లో చూపించడానికి this graph will be, this diagram will be very useful. Just try to pass the video and try to go through this diagram. I will also upload the material also in the app, so you will be able to go through this diagram once again so that you will remember it very easily. Okay. Yeah, so I have tried to provide at one table what are the items that you need to include while calculating the national income, what are the items that you need to exclude while calculating the national income. ఒక టేబుల్ లో 3 మెథడ్స్ నుంచి డిస్టిల్ చేసుకొని ఒక టేబుల్ లో ఇవ్వడం కోసం ట్రై చేశాను. So just pause the video and try to see the inclusions and exclusions. I'll upload the document also, you just go through, same will be repeating, right? So I don't want to repeat it again. Whatever we have discussed in the 3 methods, it will be available here, right? Yeah, we will solve some of the practice questions. Consider the following statements with respect to exclusion or inclusion of items while calculation of national income in India. What are the 3 statements? Capital gains are excluded from the calculation of national income. Second statement, scholarships given to students by the government are included, right? Employees share to provident fund excluded. So which of the following statements are correct? So first statement, let us see first statement. Capital gains are excluded from the calculation of national income. Yes, it is correct. Why? Because shares and bonds and any other gains any other capital gains, we are excluding while calculating the national income. First statement is correct. Second statement, scholarships given to students by government are included. Actually, these scholarships are nothing but transfer payments. So we are not including the scholarships in the calculation of national income. So second statement is wrong. And third statement, employee share to provident fund is excluded. Actually, employee share to provident fund is included while calculating the compensation of employees. So this statement is also wrong. So the answer here is that first one, A only is the correct answer. Why? Because these two statements are wrong. And employee share to provident fund actually included, right, as a component of compensation of employees. Okay, next we will see second question. See how if the examiner wants to give an examiner of twist then he will be asking this type of questions, right? So assertion and reason based questions. Yeah, assertion is that interest on government debt is included while estimating national income in India. And reason is that interest on government debt does not contribute to the production of new goods and services and considered to be of unproductive in nature. So basically, below assertion is a wrong statement, right? Why? Because interest on government debt is not included, it is excluded while estimating the national income of India. However, the reason is right. Why it is not included means that government debt does not contribute to the production of new goods services. And new goods services production use our government debt. And if it is the interest on government debt is for non-productive purposes, it is obviously not included. So the right answer is that the assertion is false. The assertion is false, but the reason is true. See, if you have the comprehensive understanding, then only you will be able to answer this type of question, right? Just see the third question. Consider the following statements with respect to estimation of national income. Transactions involving the purchase and sale of second-hand goods or existing commodities should be included in the calculation. Second statement, the sale of used houses or paintings should be included. Third statement, broker commissions while selling bonds and shares should be included. So how many of the above statements are correct? Only one statement, two statements, three statements, none. So first you will see the first statement, just see the first statement. Transactions which are involving the purchase and sale of second-hand goods or existing commodities should be included in the calculation. This is a wrong statement. It should be excluded. Why? Because manaki second-hand goods, the sale of second-hand goods, they are not producing any productive goods and services. So it excludes here. So this statement is wrong. And then sale of used houses or paintings should be included. This is also wrong. They should be excluded. Okay. Next, broker commissions while selling bonds and shares should be included. This statement is right statement. Why? Because broker, they are providing the services in the current production year. That's why we are including we need to include the broker commissions. So how many of the above statements are correct? Only one statement is correct. So this is also very difficult type of method. What do you say? Type of questions. Type of question. If you know all the three statements, then only you will be able to answer it. There is no elimination. Elimination technique doesn't work here. Elimination technique can work, right? So we will end this class here. Then in the next class, we will see what is the methodology particularly adopted in India and what are the institutions or organizations that were established to calculate the national income in India. And then we will also solve again some of the practice question and we will see some of the previous questions also, right? Okay, until then, thank you.